What's going on, all you gamers? Today we're going to be jumping into a bit more Diablo 4, and what we're going to be covering is some of the most powerful and best glyphs for your Barbarian that you should be aiming for to level up. So if that interests you, then stay tuned. That's coming up next. Welcome back everybody. Today we're going to be delving into the Barbarian class again, and this is going to be vital information for anyone who wants to invest some time in him. There's a lot of glyphs that you can get within this game, and obviously you're going to be unlocking them once you manage to get to World Tier 3. You're going to be able to get these through Nightmare Dungeons, quests from the Tree of Whispers, when you're running your Hell Tides, and just generally they're going to be dropping around the world as you're playing within that difficulty level. However, there's quite a few to choose from. You're going to be able to get 20 rare ones unlocked in total, and you're going to be able to power them up whenever you're completing those Nightmare Dungeons. But they do take quite a bit of XP to level up, so which one should you be aiming for in order to get the most powerful builds? So don't worry too much about my Paragon boards and what I've chucked together, but I have managed to level my character up to around about 87 and invested quite a bit of XP in all of these glyphs. As such, a lot of them are level 15, which you'll want to hit for them in order to get their radius slightly bigger, meaning we can pick up more nodes around it, and that's going to make your glyphs even stronger as soon as I can actually go on it. So when you're going onto your glyphs, it's going to make them even more powerful because it picks up more within the vicinity. However, which one should you be investing your time in order to make some truly powerful builds? So the first one that I have to name, it's going to be in pretty much every Barbarian build, and that's going to be Exploit. Exploit is just an amazing glyph. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, you deal 2.2% increased damage to vulnerable targets. Vulnerable is one of the rare multiplicative damage types within this game, and it's well worth investing in. In fact, if you haven't got vulnerable in your build, you're probably going to struggle. So this one, even for the fact it's giving you vulnerable damage, is well worth having on your board. However, its additional bonus makes it even more powerful. When an enemy is damaged by you, they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. This cannot happen more than once every 20 seconds per enemy. Now, even though that sounds like it's on a bit of a timer and you can only do it every once in a while, because you're going to be making them vulnerable straight away as soon as you're hitting them, most times you're going to be able to plow through them much faster than you originally would have. This is a glyph that can work its way into any Barbarian build, any playstyle, and is well worth having in pretty much every build. The only time you wouldn't have this would be if you're able to apply vulnerable guaranteed in another way. The only one I can think of would be maybe if you're using some kind of a steel grass build. Other than that, you'll probably want this slotted in your board, as it's just going to make your life much easier. Next up, and we're going to be looking at Wrath. Wrath, for every 5 dexterity purchased in range, your core skills deal 5.6% increased critical strike damage. Crit damage is definitely what you're going to be after for almost every build, and this just helps those numbers to become even crunchier. Also, its additional bonus is amazing. Skills that critically strike generate free fury. This means that if you've got a very high amount of crit chance and you've got a nice bit of crit damage going on, now you're also going to be able to generate some fury, allowing you to do some more hits with your skills. This, factored in with a little bit of additional fury within your build, usually means you can pull out your core skills over and over again and can really help your build shine. Next up, and we're going to be going over to a glyph that's not really all about making your build more powerful damage wise, but is one that you want to invest in for functionality. This glyph right here, Marshall, is just going to be the glue that holds your builds together. Most times with Barbarian, you're probably going to be using 3 shats. If not, I would imagine you'll be using 2. The more you're using, the more this glyph will shine. It's going to grant 95% bonus to all magic nodes within range. The main thing you'll be using it for after casting the shat skill, the active cooldown of every other shat skill is reduced by 1.2 seconds. Like I said, if you're using a lot of shats, if you want to be able to use them more often, then this is going to be the glyph of choice. Most times you're probably getting a little bit of health regen from your shats, as well as some damage mitigation and some resource generation. That makes this, in my eyes, one of the most essential glyphs to chuck on Barbarian for most builds. Now, the next one we're going to be looking at is not going to work in every build. It really won't, but I will tell you that it is a lot of fun to use in some, and it does mean you can get some big hits off, usually for those single strikes. And that's going to be this one just here, Mortal Draw. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, skills that swap to a different weapon deal 13.8% increased damage. Its additional bonus, swapping weapons has an 18% chance to cause the skill's damage to critically strike. This is an absolute beast in certain builds, but unfortunately most of those I'd say probably aren't meta at the moment. Probably one of the best skills you'll be using if you want to take advantage of this will be your death blow. Go from your basic into your death blow or another skill that you'll be using, and you're going to pull off a single massive chunky hit. Like I said, it doesn't work in every playstyle, but if you are able to make use of this, it can be a lot of fun to put in certain builds, and the amount of damage you get extra from this is pretty much more than in most of the other glyphs. One that I pretty much have in any build that I'm making for a Barbarian is going to be the Territorial Glyph. This one is just easy to slot in place, works on absolutely every build and gives you exactly what you're after. For every 5 dexterity purchase within range, you deal a set amount of increased damage to close targets, as well as its additional bonus, you gain 10% damage reduction against close enemies. Anytime you can get a bit of mitigation or damage reduction within this game, you should grab it, because later on those nightmare dungeons are literally a nightmare, no pun intended. The enemies just hit you for such high damage that most times you're not able to stay alive when you're in amongst the thick of things. With the Barbarian, you have no choice, you're in amongst everything, you're close range. This helps out a little bit to give you a bit of extra damage as well as a little bit of damage reduction. Next one we're going to be going over is going to be Cleaver. I really like this one. Again, it's probably one that won't work itself into every build because it is going to be revolving around an axe rather than a sword, and a lot of people will prefer to use swords because of the crit damage. But if you are using an axe, this one's going to be amazing. For every 5 strength purchased within range, you deal 2.9% increased damage whilst wielding an axe. But the additional bonus is what makes this one shine. That's whilst wielding an axe, you deal 12% increased critical strike damage. Again, anytime you can get critical strike damage, it's a bonus, and the fact that as you're leveling this up, it's giving you damage as well as giving you that additional bonus crit damage makes this an absolutely amazing glyph, and one you'll definitely want to take advantage of if you're using an axe. Next up, and we're going to be jumping over to one that works amazing for any build that's going to be revolving around bleed, and that's going to be your Blood Feeder glyph. For every 5 dexterity purchased within range, you deal an extra amount of increased damage to bleeding targets. Also, its additional bonus, you have 5% increased critical strike chance against bleeding enemies. Being able to get 5% increased critical strike chance can really help your build out to do more crit and crit damage. For that reason alone, if you're using a bleed build, this would be one that I'd definitely suggest chucking in. And lastly, one that probably not a lot of people will pick, but I think this one's amazing, and that's going to be Imbiber. This one, for every 5 willpower purchased within range, you deal a set amount of increased damage whilst you're healthy. However, the increase to the damage of this one is actually quite high compared to most of the other glyphs. Because it's only factoring in when you're healthy, it means it's a bit harder to pull off most times. However, at later tier dungeons, you'll realise that if you're not healthy, you're probably going to get one shot, so you make your build so that it's topped up with health most times. Its additional bonus, you gain 30% increased potion healing, is also very helpful, and especially if you're going to be using the unique Pants Temerity, which is going to give you a shield whenever you're topping up your health through potions and such. This one can work hand in hand with that amazing, and is one you may well want to factor into your build. Right, they're going to be pretty much my top choices for the moment. Hopefully that's helped a few of you guys and girls out, gave you a little bit of ideas for your builds, and if there's any that you think I've missed off or that you think are really powerful that should be on the list, then let me know in the comments. As always, there'll be a lot more content from me. For now, take care. I'll see you all next day.